Hello, welcome to our podcast, A Student's Guide to the Film Industry. My name is Alston, and I have here my other guests, Joshua and Hector. Today, we are going to be discussing our previous guests and kind of just our journey of going through this podcast overall. So I kind of want to pivot to a question that's, more in general of just from going through all the episodes of the guests that we had. I kind of want to talk about what would be the best filmmaking advice you can remember that stuck with you.
Um, I remember last week's episode when we talked with Derek. That was his name.
I believe
Yeah,
so.
He 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 basically gave us like a broad idea as to like what's important about the industry is you got to make connections, and that is a very obviously we've been hearing that ever since we started the program. Like connections are important, and sometimes you might not find jobs like as soon as you get out of studying. So you have to start making those key connections as soon as you get out or while in college. Like right now, we already make connections with ourselves. So in the future, if for some reason I need help or we need help, we could be like, oh hey, remember we did the podcast? Yeah, blah blah blah. But that is like the biggest thing that I remember. I remember when we talked with Gaz and Kiara as well, since Kiara was an actress. She had she brought up the idea. It's like, yeah, you have to keep if you're going for this specific job, you might apply to a lot of positions, but you only get called back for one or two. So you have to have that mentality whenever you go out for work. And I think that's also something very important that you're not guaranteed everything and you gotta constantly keep looking.
yeah. I mean, what Hector was saying is connections is this huge thing. I mean, you're not gonna get far. I mean, any profession ever, you're not gonna get far without connections. So it's really going out to those like sets. It's really going out to those, meeting people, even like meeting someone. It doesn't even have to be in set. Maybe like someone in a restaurant or something. I've definitely heard stories of people just sitting in a restaurant. So, oh, I heard you had a camera. Well, I need someone with a camera. Hey, I heard you were, a writer. I need a writer. So it's very much of like, finding those connections, and it could be anyone. It's really dependent on who it's important to have people there in your contacts, just to like, hey, I know like a long time ago we talked briefly, but would you like to do this? That's how I got, Gaz and Derek to get on here, is because, Gaz is a good friend of mine. Derek, I had one conversation with him, really long conversation, with him like for like one day, and I asked him, hey, can you come over and do this film, interview for us students? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to donate. So again, it's very much of connections, how you connect with people, where you connect with them, and it's important that you just keep that in mind, that it's not always about your writing skills, because you could be a really good writer if you don't know anyone who's gonna publish your writing, who's gonna be there to listen to it. Like I've had definitely had people in school where at Nova where they're like, oh, I'm a really good script writer. I love writing scripts. I love doing this. I'm like, great. Where's your work? Because I've never seen your scripts in the open. I don't know. How can I judge that you're a good writer? Um, I have people where it's like, oh yeah, I love camera work. Even me, I do a lot of camera work. I say like, doing a lot of camera work, but I don't have a website for any of my photos or videos, anything like that. I got a YouTube channel, but it's small things, and that's the reason why we have reels. That's the reasons we have this and stuff, and it's really just getting out there, finding yourself, and it's much like a calculation of, I need to get out there. And a lot of people coming into this, they think, oh well, I'll go in this film school and then magic and then I'm famous, because I've known a couple of people like that. But it's really not that. It's really also just a calculation of, how are people going to know if they don't know you? It's like you put in one ticket versus 1,000 of these other tickets. Your chances of getting a prize by someone taking a ticket or something from like a raffle. It's very slim versus you're going out there and you're going, you're making these connections with people, people, and then people who might know other people who might need you for something. So yeah, no, connections is definitely one of the biggest things I learned from this. I mean, learning from Gaz, Kira, and Derek, they're all like, yeah, well, I mean, I knew this guy who brought me in for this project. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's not to say that, you know, you cannot make it by doing work by yourself. Like you said, it's like a raffle. Because one person can just get very lucky and they'll be like, hey, yeah, this idea just banged and then boom, everything just came to me. But a lot of the times, you just have to go in with the mindset that you're not gonna get lucky. You have to like actively look for people and get yourself out there. Like you can write a book. I've written like so many like old short stories, but I don't have a publisher. I can self-publish, but I can't get myself out there like easily. Maybe if I campaign online, I can get lucky and get traction, but like it's better to play it safe and actively look for people to help you, the connections, than playing playing the things and doing it solo essentially. That's what I'm trying to say. Which is good that you brought that up, the whole little raffle thing. I like that little analogy.
What about you, Alston? Was there something particular that you uh, got out of all this?
Yeah, going along with what you guys said about having that connection, I also think that from the podcast we kind of listened to, kind of like as a whole, a good piece of information that I kind of learned from a lot of them was the idea of kind of being resourceful as a filmmaker. I think that a lot of the filmmakers that we had not only kind of had like their own sort of specified section of filmmaking, whether it be writing or directing. I think that a lot of the filmmakers that we had were able to kind of understand the basics of certain other fields of like editing or, being behind the camera, kind of script writing. I think the idea of being resourceful as a filmmaker is so important because, I think what we had Gar, he kind of mentioned, he had friends while he was making the films that he made, and that helped them. But I think that with being a filmmaker, anything can happen. It's so kind of it's kind of unpredictable. So I think that with being resourceful, you're able to see sides of filmmaking that would be unable to see if you just only focus on writing or directing or editing. I think that when you see the bigger picture, it will help you as a filmmaker because it not only kind of makes you empathize with the other fields, but it also helps you see films in a certain way that is greater than just kind of having a field of view of not sort of understanding the workings of what it's like if the editing is off or the story is off. You have that experience of editing, of sound design, especially doing the work to be resourceful. I think that's one of the most important things about filmmaking, and definitely what I've got from the guests that we've had made it a point to work on your craft and also not be afraid to go outside of your field of comfortability, because I think that especially when you're in the industry, you might get to the point where you feel comfortable or where things get uncomfortable, and that will make or break you. The idea of being uncomfortable and not knowing that now what do I have to do next, I think that does make you either a powerful force in industry or not. So I think that definitely is something to take a hold from all the podcasts that we have, is not only having the connections, but also yourself being resourceful, using what you have and make it bigger and better than what it was before. I think that's one of the most important things in the industry. Definitely what I learned from this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely what you said, like finding what you like and uh, just working on that, you can make it or break you. I mean, you look at like everyone that we interviewed today, Derek, Gaz, Kira, all of them, they had their, they love these things. They did these as hobbies as kids, Gaz was like, oh, well, I love doing this as a kid, so I did it. Derek was like, oh, I love doing this as a kid. Same with Kira, she's a fan of anime and stuff. And so she got into voice acting because of it. and it's really, I think a lot of people just think, oh, well, I'm, I'll find whatever, like I'll do all these jobs and do this. Like, no, perfecting one craft is very hard in and of itself, whether it's writing, whether it's camera work or acting. Uh, just one of those, if you just focus on one of those, it could take years to master any skill, whatsoever. So you have to find, not just you guys, but anyone listening to this podcast, anyone listening to me right now, anyone who is wanting to do anything in film, you need to find that specific piece of film, part of filmmaking that you want to do. And you need to perfect that, because some people are good at acting, but not good at writing. Some people are good at, cinematography, then lighting, or editing or whatever. So you have to find what your specific need is and whether or not you want to do that as a profession. Because the people that we brought in are people who do this as a career, as a job, as a profession. But even Gaz, who strayed away from the filmmaking business and started doing something else to help pay the bills. It's a very hard industry to get into, and you have to love it a lot to do it, and you have to know the insides, again, connections of knowing the insides and whatnot. So yeah, and people that we interviewed were celebrities, right? Kira is the closest thing I think we could say to a celebrity. But with Gaz and Derek, they're doing their own things. There's some cinematographers, and these are what real people in the industry. It's like, you look at the behind the scenes of every feature film that you ever watched, or like whatever. That's not actual. Well, that is filmmaking, but most of the time you won't be seeing that. You'll be seeing like a smaller version or smaller scale of that. You'll be seeing something where just a group of people just having fun, going, hey, let's just go into a film festival. Let's just make this funny movie, and then just go into the film festival and do that, and again, connections. Because if you have people, trying to, if you're trying to do a movie, it doesn't take too much to just shoot something, just have a camera and have a couple people, and you got, you got that. And if you want to grow bigger and add more things like props or costumes, then you add that, but it's also like you have people that can do that. So it's not just trying to find connections within the film industry. Again, it's finding connections anywhere. Because you might have someone who has a hobby that's like, oh yeah, well, I make props for a living, or like as a hobby, and when I have free time. Or yeah, I dabble in editing, or I just proofread things every now and then. Those are people that can definitely help you, because you never know. You might need that, and you just call them up and go, I need a prop for this. Can you make this for me, for this film? Or and most of the time people will love to donate their time. Oh my god, a film? Really? That's great. Let's let's do that. I'm happy to just be a part of it. So let me just help you make that, or help you do that. So again, it's perfecting your craft, knowing what you want to do. And a lot of people too, it's like they do filmmaking on the side. I know a lot of people who are a lot older, like, in their 40s and 50s and stuff and 30s. They're not super into it. Like, they have other jobs and careers, but they kind of do it on the side. They love camera work, they love sound editing and stuff like that. And they just have this equipment on hand. And they don't really use them that much. Sometimes they will, sometimes you can ask, if you know those people, you can ask them, hey, can I borrow your equipment real quick? Can I borrow this real quick? They'll be happy to lend it to you if you're really good friends with them. So again, connections. Affecting
It
your
all goes down to it.
knowing who being a friendly person, being an open person. Like, just don't be afraid of whatever you're doing. Like, don't be shy about what you're doing. Don't be like, I don't know if I can talk to this person. I don't know if I can do this. No, be open. Ask people, like how we ask people to be in the interviews. It takes a lot of courage to ask people. But if you are very serious about it in this industry, and if you really want to do this, then that's how you get into it. You just talk to people. So yeah.
It's nerve-wracking going back to like the whole asking for interviews, I was I was debating if I really wanted to send out this email or not,
Most
because I was like,
definitely.
oh my God, like I have a fear of rejection. I think a lot of people, you know, probably fall under that fear of rejection when you
Yeah,
try to
that's a
like
huge
ask
thing.
for something that's pretty big. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want her to say no or anything. But then I was like, you know what? Screw it. If she says no, she says no. And then, hey, I managed to get Kira as a guest, and it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, most
So
of the time, like you will get rejected from things. Like there's times where I got rejected from film sets. They're like, oh, as an extra, I was like, hey, I'd like to apply as an extra. They're like, well, you don't fit our, you don't fit our idea of an extra or what an extra is. We're not looking for a type of person. We're not looking for that type of character or this and that's fine because there are times where it's like, all right, well, I got other things to do. Um, and there's always going to be another opportunity out there. So you just gotta look for it. You gotta have the resources on hand to look for it. So yeah,
yeah. Going back to like what you were saying about even your friends having like hobbies like prop making and stuff. What I really like about this and what I've learned about just like the whole film program in general at Nova is you can literally find people that do things that align with film, but they don't see it like them working in film. You know what I mean? Because I remember my first short film, I went to make a horror movie and I brought it up in our first episode with Gaz, and I needed like a head squashing prop. And I was like, how am I gonna do that? I don't know a lick of like practical effects. But I did know a friend of mine that is obsessed with that stuff, and he just does it for fun, like art and stuff. So I asked him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll do that. You kidding? So you can record and everything." Like people really do get excited when like they hear like an interest that you're interested in something that they like. And with friends, family, that's something that you should really take advantage of,
yeah,
especially
no,
with what we're doing. And with the film program, what's good about it, I when I started this program, I did not talk to anybody. I was always like a very introverted person when it came to talking to people. Um, but then thankfully, because of the film program, everybody's like likes and dislikes or tastes rather, they kind of fall in line with mine too. It's a little bit more easier to talk to them. So I managed to do a couple group projects in my other classes and stuff easier than it would have been for any other course, because I know that these people, they like the same things I do. We all want to do this and that, and it's easier. And I think I've grown accustomed to like reaching out to people is what I'm trying to say, which will help me in the long run.
yeah. I mean, and not just film, any job you do is just like you have to reach people to, if you want to better your position, you reach out to people, even if it's just to have drinks with someone. Like, hey, yeah, like this guy's pretty cool. I'd like to have a drink with them every now and then you have drinks with them. Like, oh well, I'm doing this film, or I have this position open. And I'd like you to do it. So it's very much connections, getting to know your people, and stuff. And if you're at Nova, definitely like watch your emails because sometimes the teachers would like to put out things for emails, and that actually kind of got a kickstart of my experience. And these are smaller film sets, but there's always people out there who reach out to Nova to ask for someone to help film something, maybe as like a PA, or like, hey, we need some experienced people, just extra hands, some muscle to help carry things to and from the set. And that's can be a really big Kickstarter. That definitely opened me up to the industry and to a lot of people. Another way to kind of get your foot in the door, at least kind of get to the door at least, is Facebook. Because a lot of people like nowadays, like Facebook's really for older people, but a lot of those older people are directors and people who have experience in film. And I still have Facebook, and I keep it on hand just to see like, hey, there's a couple communities out there. I wouldn't like just watch out for those communities because those communities are weird.
Yeah.
What I mean weird, like they're like dangerously weird. Like they're very sketch. But there's a lot of people out there like, hey, I'm making this film. We need this actress. We need this, an extra hand and stuff. Hey, we need this. And I keep in touch with, a couple editors, directors, whatever. And some of them are like far away, LA, New York, wherever. but there's still people on hand, and if they ever come down, it'd be like, hey, I heard you were doing a film. Would you like my help, or even you to reach out to them? Facebook is definitely one of those things. I mean, definitely looking on social media as well of just general films in your area, because that's where a lot of directors, a lot of other people get started, is looking into your closer community rather than trying to go to LA and just do things from scratch in LA, So start within your community right now. Start within your home, what you want to do, and then start growing it outwards.
Definitely. Just yeah, definitely something to just look over, and especially what you mentioned Facebook, and going with my thing of being resourceful, even with Facebook, just finding that connection and using, yourself as a tool to further help your kind of journey into filmmaking is the most important thing you could do, because the other thing you really just have to do is persevere this industry. So I think that's definitely something to remember from this podcast. But the next question that I have for you guys would be similar to the question before, but more of just to the sort of perspective that you guys see yourself in. How would you say, from the experience that you had from listening to the filmmakers that came before this podcast, how would you say that changed your perspective on the industry as a whole?
Well, even though when I started my film studies, I already had a vague idea, but the biggest takeaway that I got is that the industry is not all rainbows and sunshine. It's
Mhm.
um it could be very hard to like not only get into it, but once you start working under it, you can be dealt with so much like stress overtime. You might not be getting like a good amount of sleep. You might have to work double time for like crunches and like deadlines. Deadlines are a big issue when it comes to like these type of positions if you don't know what you're doing. Um, and it's it's not that I really learned about it when we were um interviewing our guests. It's more so like they kind of solidified what I thought. It's like the industry, while it looks interesting and fun, it could be very hard hitting, it could be very heavy, and just be ready to face those challenges. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
So you got to stay prepared.
it's a lot of work. I mean, yeah, like you said, staying prepared. I mean, even I think all of them, maybe not Kara, but I know Gaz and Derek definitely said this, but like they both said, keep in shape, do physical exercises.
I remember Derek specifically mentioning that, like he said, I think he said something about like make sure you stay hydrated or
Yeah.
something like that in those lines.
Well,
And I
yeah,
was
they
like,
said, stay hydrated, stay, definitely as a PA working on sets as a PA, it definitely is very physically exerting when you're working and carrying things and doing lighting and stuff. So, it's a lot of physical work when you're on set, and then when you're doing things before set. For me, like as I went to Nova's Czech Republic study abroad trip, and definitely as a director doing that, it's a lot of work, and I got to see from the perspective of someone looking into the industry just for a moment into like the daily how people act. And trust me, like the Czech students and the Czech directors and everything over there, they do it like quick. They do it like, like, hey, okay, today I'm working on 3 films. I'm editing for this one, I'm writing for this one, I'm scheduling this one, So, and then I've had people on, as a director on my set, I've had people like, yeah, I have a test later today. So once we're done with this, I'm going over there to do a test, and then I'm getting on the bus, driving 2 hours to this other city or town to do this other film, and then I'm coming back and working on your guys' film again. And it's like it's a lot, and it's a lot of scheduling, it's a lot of deadlines, it's a lot of whatever you need done is done and stuff. Things pop up, things happen. It's a hectic life, and that's why a lot of people that I know only really do it as a hobby or part time and not really doing it full time. So it's not a pretty all red carpet, all fame, and I shot one film and done for the rest of the year. No, it's if once you're starting out, you're doing films over and over again if you really want to get into it. Even Derek and Gaz, they talked about they were doing films over and over and over again, and it took them years to get to where they are right now. And they're not like super famous, but they're pretty content where they are. Doing
Yeah,
freelance or doing something else to help pay the bills more, and they still enjoy it. So it's very much like
yeah, they're making the most out of it, and
yeah,
at the end of the day, that's really what you want to do. You want to make sure that you yourself are enjoying what you're doing, and whether that's your main source of income or you have another job and you're doing this as a side, like as long as you're enjoying and staying safe, yeah, do whatever. Ideally, in a world, if people could just make millions and millions off of one single movie, we wouldn't be getting these many movies. So going like with that mentality of making it big as soon as you come out, that's something that
yeah.
you should not even be having in your mind.
Yeah, don't. I have a lot of people thinking that they're gonna make it big, and to be fair, like I was one of those people too. That they're gonna make it big in life by doing films because they think their story is the best. I can tell you as much that I think almost every story has been told at least once or twice. Um, I can't tell you how many times there's like vampire movies, like, oh, I have this really cool vampire. All right, already done. There's like 50,000 million vampire
Yeah,
movies. Oh, I have this story about this, cultural thing. Well, maybe there's cultural things already been done, whatever. Oh, I have this story. So you got to really find your niche. And you're really putting your hands in fate, basically, and that you don't know what's going to come up. You don't know how, whatever's going to be, whatever. Just have fun with it because there's times where directors and producers or whoever make a film and it becomes great. They don't know why, but it becomes a bigger hit than they thought. For example, George Lucas, when he created Star Wars, I mean, I don't think he went to the premiere of Star Wars. Hang on, give me 1 second. Someone's calling me.
you're fine. We'll keep it we'll keep it going. But I used to have the mentality when I started doing film. I used to be like, oh man, I want to do this because I want to get an Oscar, I want to get an award and stuff. Don't One thing that I learned, don't do this just to get recognition, or don't do this because you want to be famous. This is not the industry for that, because fame comes with talent or drive, you know. If people enjoy what you do, then yeah, you'll become famous. But this, like, don't be doing films just for the sole purpose of trying to get like the big reward so quick. Because right now, like for my artist statement and in my portfolio course, I was like initially when I started this program, I was like, oh, I want to do this because I want to get so many awards and stuff. And really, I my viewpoint of this just changed to like I just want to make movies that people enjoy, that they enjoy as much as I enjoy making them. And if I accomplish that goal, I'll be happy, and I'll be happy for like the rest of my career as long as I get to do that. I don't want to like make things that get all the praise and then it's one and done, because that'd be boring. That'd be like all these years that I studied and practiced like thrown out the window. No, it's you always got to keep yourself motivated and into the shape of things.
Yeah, like what
But
you
go
said.
ahead, Josh. You had to leave. I don't know if you
Yeah, did I
finished.
mute myself by the way? Or
Um, you muted yourself and then you unmuted saying, "Hold on, I'll be right back. They're calling me." And you were talking about George Lucas. Um,
okay. Yeah, no, I mean George Lucas was like he made Star Wars and he wasn't sure that it was going to be a good thing, and then it turned out to be one of the biggest franchises in the world. I think I said that already before in another interview, but it's definitely a prime example of like one of those things where it's like you don't know what, big or small, just put all your effort into making that movie. Put all your effort into writing that scene. Make sure, make sure that it's something that you want to do at least. Finish it. Finish everything that you have. Finish what you have. Whatever you're writing, finish it. Whatever you're making, finish it. Because I mean, that's one of the issues I actually experienced in Czech Republic on the Czech Republic trip was that I was working with 4 other directors, and they didn't want to finish this film, and this film turned out really bad, way worse than it would have been if they put in just a little bit more effort into making it. Not saying that it was it was anyone's fault because we're all tired and like at some point
Yeah.
gave up. Well, but it's one of those things where it's like you can definitely avoid a lot of crazy mistakes. You know, not finishing a film, you kind of like you don't make any like as many crazy mistakes versus if you're just like, I don't care anymore. Let me just not make this film anymore. I don't care. So just make sure you finish once you start something, make sure you see it through that. Is, I guess my point.
Yeah, and like what Hector said, just thinking about when you are making films like that, making the film, the mission isn't to get accolades. That your the accolades is the product of your movies. It's what your movies mean to the people, what they mean to the Academy or whatever is dictating the awards. The mission of making the film is to get your story across to doing that. So I think that yeah, when you are making films, that it's kind of like the natural response of you want your film to get out there and be appreciated and celebrated. But I think again, it's to the story because again, like what you said, everyone thinks their story is the best. That's not a bad thing. Everyone that is writing that, whether it's I'm writing this story that's never been done before, or that's never been done before. Everybody thinks that their story, is the greatest story to be ever told, and that's a good thing. You shouldn't think the opposite, of course, but I think that it's good to know that yes, you have confidence within your work, but you shouldn't think that the work that you are doing is for a certain accolade or award. Your movies, like I said, is the award is the product of the movie or what the movie meant. It's not the mission of the movie. I think that's the best thing to think of when you are making movies. It's to tell your story and why are you making this movie, whether it's for to prove this message or to share this story. I think that that's the biggest thing to think about when you are making a movie, to really tell to yourself, is this something that I want to do? Because you need to have the perseverance, the force to make you continue the movie. Like, what you said when you went to, abroad, they may not have finished the movie, when they did the movie, when they finally finished it, it wasn't the best or whatever, because it didn't have the type of heart that was meant to be in for it. And that goes along with you thinking, is this a story that deserves to be told? You have to think that as yourself as a filmmaker, when you're doing all of this work, is it worth it?
Yeah. You'll be
Yeah, and
double-guessing yourself a lot. Definitely.
yeah, I
Because
mean, you will face trial. Sorry, go ahead, Hector.
no, you're fine. You're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying like you will face trials. Definitely making films. I mean, just keep in mind anything group related, there will always be some kind of drama anywhere. Because someone got issued with someone else, or whatever. There's always going to be drama within a film set, and you need to just kind of put that in mind that it's not easy perfecting a craft. It's not easy sculpting a sculpture. It's not easy painting a really great painting. So same thing, even more so with film. It's not easy being a filmmaker. So that's why I say do step by step. Start, learning what's your niche, what's something that you are very passionate about, something you are very good at, and then kind of work your way into that and gaining experience from that. It's very much like choosing career. Oh, I want to be a doctor, be this. Same thing with film. Just find a specific thing that you're into and work on that for as long as you can. So
Just having that thought in your head of just persevering and working through, because like we said, not everything is guaranteed. Of course there's going to be problems, and I feel like that's a a good thing of when your movie is going too smoothly, or everything is right. I think it could and it should kind of bring into your head to look at it deeper, because movies are supposed to challenge whatever they are, and not everything is gonna go so smoothly in a film, process, and that's a good thing, I think that's something that kind of speaks to a director or other people in the crew having their own say so in the story and really understanding the story in a different way, and that could bring a kind of chaotic beauty with it, looking into a story because everybody has their own perspectives. But just going along with that, and then thinking about the podcast in a whole, changing my perspective, definitely what you guys said, not so much change, but like what Hector said, kind of solidified the thought of how much work goes into being a filmmaker, not only on the end of actually making a film, but into your own, mental health and mental space, because the perseverance to be a filmmaker in this industry, especially right now post COVID, it is something that you really have to desire doing, being a filmmaker. You really have to desire making films and creating stories and being a part of this industry, um more than ever now. So definitely that, these podcast episodes have definitely solidified the thought in my head that this is hard work, and it's an everyday process and never really kind of ends. Being a filmmaker, especially starting out, you're gonna go through many stories, many films, many cameras, just go through so much filmmaking, especially in the early kind of days of being a filmmaker. And I think that's a good thing, and it's definitely gonna train you and test you beyond belief. But I think that when you are somebody who loves making films, like we do, um that's just like that's the beauty of it, and that's the pain of it. And I think that's something to really look forward to, not as so much a fear, but something that is an inevitable kind of event to happen, and we love making films, so that's worth it to us. So
Yeah,
definitely.
and yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, no, you're, if you wanted to add something too.
No, I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say like, yeah, no, it's definitely like one of those things. Like, there's a difference between going to school for it versus doing it in real life. And my experience, I'd say that it makes me feel like it. But no, my experience, on sets, working on sets versus in the classroom. In the classroom, they can only teach you so much. They're doing it based off whatever is the Fairfax or whatever code, or they're doing it to grade papers. Uh, Film is in and of itself its own kind of graded paper, in that you have a product, you were making this product, and you were showing it to people, and they will be, maybe they like it, maybe they don't, whatever. So you don't know that. So there's a difference between writing out, okay, I know how they made this scene versus how can I make this scene. So it's really, you have to be really into it. You have to have a certain mindset. Because I mean, being honest, there's a lot of people in the film, classes that I go in, most likely probably won't be able to do film. I'm probably one of those people. I'm not saying like, like, oh yeah, no, I think all these students or whatever. I'm just saying, realistically speaking, if you're not super into it, if you're not doing this, if you're not learning about film, or having a specific, idea of what you want to do in film, while you're going to school, it's might not work for you, because it's a really tough industry to get into. It's a really, huge thing. And it's even harder nowadays, when we have all this technology around. People have phones, people have YouTube, TikTok, all these crazy apps and different, things, making it harder for films to even get out there. I mean, even with streaming services now, they're very choosy on what films to show because they want to make money. Um, so you kind of, you gotta do a lot of research into what you're doing and how you're going to do it. Uh, and again, it's like, film is its own kind of school. You're doing a lot more research. If you want to make a movie about knights, you got to do a lot of research on that. If you want to make a movie about werewolves and stuff, you got to do some research on it. Because especially nowadays, when people like to know things or have comic books, or people are very smart nowadays with all the technology that we have. They will look at it and go, "Nah, that's not right."
I could have done it better.
Yeah, like they could have done this better. Like, with all these adaptations. Well, I mean, the books were better. So you got to do a lot of research on a lot of things. So it's about research outside of school. It's not just what you're learning in class, it's what you can learn, what's something that you hold dear to your heart outside of the classroom that you learn at home and you do as a hobby in your free time. So.
Yeah. So yeah, just yeah, just all just just taking the advice from all the filmmakers and taking in consideration of, you know, your perseverance, your health, and all of that. But going with that, I think that I can ask you guys possibly with that all that we learned, how do you guys see yourself taking the advice that we got and see yourself furthering your progress as a filmmaker beyond this class? If I want to ask that, yeah, beyond this class, I think, what can you say that is something that you will definitely take into consideration what we learned through all these podcasts into being a filmmaker post Nova?
This is not even exclusive to the podcast itself. It's more like
Right.
a wider thing. Just if there's one thing I learned, it's like anything that comes up in my mind, whether it's like a script or a quick like edit or maybe like a little short film, to do it, you know? Because I guess this kind of goes in line with what Josh was talking about, like the other student directors at the Czech Republic, that they didn't like go all the way through. You never know if those ideas could really um become something great, or just or just help you out in the long run. Like right here I'm sitting on my portfolio class having to do my demo reel, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I have like 4 short films that I worked on that I could do it. And I'm like, damn, only 4? I've been studying for like, I want to, well, almost 3 years, because COVID happened and I took like a skip semester, whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I should have done more. And I think that regardless, if I'm studying or if I have a job that involves industry, just still do those little small projects that come to mind, and they could already keep you in the groove of things. Like, if necessary, I can get myself a mental deadline, just so I can like make sure, okay, no, I if I'm gonna do this, I need to do it by this time, just so I can have it done, because like I it's how do I say it? These like there's no harm in keep on doing like a lot of these like little things. There's no harm in keep practicing and do all these things and get your work out there, because like what Kira was saying, apply for like 100 jobs, get called for like 2. The more material you have, the more material your employers see, you know, or whoever you're looking to work for sees. And I think that's just something that I had to keep in mind regarding like work ethic when it comes to doing like these things in the film industry.
Yeah, I mean, what you said, Hector, work ethic, it's really important. And like Kira said, apply 1,000 jobs, get like 2. Uh, Very much like getting your foot in the door, like how big do you want that your foot in the door? Like how much space do you want the door between the frame, and how much space do you want in between your foot? Basically, but I guess the analogy I'm trying to get at is that the more you apply, the more you go out to these things, the more you're gonna have a chance of doing these things. Most of the time, you're not even very much like applying to colleges or anything. Uh, the more you do these things, the more of a chance that you're gonna get a result that might be slim, but can definitely be a long shot if you do it correctly or by chance it happens. Um, I mean, definitely answering your question, Alston. Uh, from hearing from other people in the industry, and from my experience going to smaller sets, uh, it's definitely a lot of hard work, and you need to be able to put in the hard work to do that. because there are so many times where, again, drama, where I definitely had people kind of yelling at each other, or fights, not physical fights, but definitely like verbal fights of like, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Hey, you're way out of line. It's gonna happen in the industry. So just be sure, your department, what you're doing, and that you're doing it correctly, basically. And I mean, it's not film isn't always, even though we have all these deadlines in film and all these crazy, schedules in film, it's not always going to be 100%. Okay, we finished shooting at 6:15. Sometimes a shot will go like 2-3 hours when it's supposed to be scheduled for a 50-minute shot. Or maybe they take some things out because they feel like, I just feel like, so definitely you have to, it's a really hectic work ethic, but if you guys are willing to go in there and do that, if it's something you are so passionate about that you want to, hey, yeah, no, like I'm okay with all the crazy schedules. I'm okay with being sleep deprived and only having like half an hour of sleep and running on energy drinks and Adderall. Do it, because it's a tough, and you need to have a certain mentality to have that. And that's really the one thing that's going to be pushing you to finish a film is, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep for 1,000 years, but I need to finish this film. So
There will come. Those days will come. They will come.
those days will come if you ever experience them. I envy and feel sorry for you for any of that, but anyone going through that. So because I went through that, it's fun. So
Lord knows when I started doing like the short films for like film production one, I would stay up until like 8 in the morning the next day, because I'm like editing and I'm like, okay, I'll only edit this little bit. And I'm
yeah,
like, okay, I found myself editing the whole freaking movie. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. And I had to keep going. Those like very hectic days will come. It's
yeah,
inevitable. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have those, you know? But this is not a perfect world. We had to get used to it because that's the industry we chose. I mean,
yeah. I mean, definitely, yeah. I mean, making films too. Like me, when I made my short films and stuff, when I started out, I was like, okay, something's definitely missing here. What's missing here? I found that a lot of it's like editing. Editing is really a hard profession to get into. Well, it's not a hard. Well, it is a hard profession to get into. You need the right equipment. You need to have the right mindset, because sitting there for hours on end, just looking at the same screen like over and over, replaying the same 5-minute clip takes like 2 hours to, you know, color grade. Yeah, do sound. Yeah, that's another thing too. Sound editing is not. We like to dissect film into like, okay, pre-production, writers, producers, directors, budget, whatever. And shooting is like, okay, lighting people, camera people, all these other people, and then director. That's it. And then you have post-production. It's like, okay, well, that's just editors, right? No, it's more, it's more like, okay, you have screenwriters, and then you have writers who proofread what the screenwriters wrote. Filming, it's just so many different jobs depending on what you're filming. And then you got, post-production where it's editing, and there's so many different editors out there. There's color graders, there's sound editors, there's just image editors, and there's just, all kinds of editors, all kinds of people that are involved in film, and really just, kind of look out for what might be your thing, because, what might be like a small little thing that's kind of weird actually might be something involved in film. Like Foley artists, that's one example of such a job where it's like, oh, I never thought that would be, you mess around with things and make noise, and then that's put in films. Okay, that's kind of cool. Or like we said, prop making, where it's like, oh, you just make these things and they happen to appear on films. That's kind of cool too, I guess. So really, reach out to everyone you can, because they could make or break your film as well. So
Yeah, just thinking what Hector said, and with the guests that we had before, definitely that worth ethic, and just not even just the worth ethic, but the actual work with it, and having, of course, like Hector mentioned, like, oh, do I have enough in my portfolio, or like all this time, and you just kind of feeling like, do I have enough to like make myself a name, and go in the film industry with, if I don't have all these short films or whatever films under my belt. I think that with all of this, it's definitely made me want to do the work of just going into the field and, making films, and having the thought of I went through with making film, and, like regard, many people in the industry first starting out, you make a bunch of films, you make a bunch of, things that, may never see the light of day, or, you go through all this time making films, but the point of having it not only to just to say that, oh, I worked on film, I did all this, you have the actual film, the actual projects that you went through, you have that as proof. And I think that, definitely moving on from this definitely motivate me to just go out and, write the scripts, or, get the camera and, start shooting, just thinking of my filmmaking career starting, instantly, instead of, just looking into to the future. Can I start? Just starting it now, and, building up then, because like I said, it's never too early to just start, your career. There's no time but today. So I think that definitely is something that I took from all of the people that I learned, the perseverance to just keep doing the work, and just, to, repeatedly, repeated actions of, filmmaking is going to help your craft. The way to help the craft is to just to do it. When you think of, oh, how do I do this, or not even how do I do this, but, how do I make this better, or, it's not working out for me, but just doing the work and just doing what you have to do for film. You can find things, within that will teach yourself. So I think that all you can do is really just do the work.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like we're saying, like, a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Do the work. You're gonna die, like, doing work in this film. Like, anyone listening to this, we're not trying to say, like, hey, this is gonna be a very terrible thing. Like, filmmaking is a terrible thing and stuff like that. It can be a terrible thing. It can be a great thing.
Yeah, it definitely does start to scare, but this will, if anything, motivate somebody to think of, like we said kind of earlier, this is what you want to do with life. This is what, you strive for being a filmmaker. Yes, you are gonna have the great and fun times if you love being a filmmaker, going in the field and making the film and looking at, your takes and, setting up sets, all of that. The love of filmmaking is within the action, but again, the action is going to take a lot of work. You have to be ready to not only feel the pleasure of film, but also, feel the hard work of it that comes, before you feel that pleasure. And I think that this is something to notice, for potential filmmakers that are watching, our podcast, just to reiterate to you, because I'm sure you already know it's going to take hard work, but to really think of this being your career. It's not something of, I just do this hard work and it's over. Like what you said, you could take a long time making films. Films are, it could be a continuous process of filmmaking, so don't look at this as sort of a end goal for you, because again, like I said, if you want to be a filmmaker for your life as a career, it's an ongoing process for the rest of your life. So look at this more of less a kind of, a kind of in race, or sort of an end goal, but look at it more as a process that's never ending of being a filmmaker and going through the ups and downs, because it's going to be ups and downs. But that's the beauty of it. Nothing is never sacred of being completely, without, conflict. But that's the beauty of being a filmmaker, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any job ever. You're gonna go through some hardships. You're gonna go through all these issues. We say that there's a lot of work because there is a lot of work, and we're not going to be student after this class. We're not going to be. Well, I'm still going to be a student at Nova, but I'm not going to be doing all these film classes anymore. We're not going to be. We're not just students anymore. We're actual filmmakers, if we choose to be. And it's anyone listening to this who are just doing film as a program instead of going out and actually filming things. This is, it's time to wake up. Time to wake up and realize if filming is right for you. Because I've definitely had a lot of students where they're lazy, they just don't want to do film, or they don't want to go out and help do projects. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll just go here. I don't care. Like, oh, let's do this. Like they're very lazy, not doing it. It's like, why are you doing film if you're not actively trying to go out and help people film?
Right, right.
So that's that's just the way things are. So yeah, but again, it's find your passion, find your drive, and find that mentality that's gonna make you want to get up off the couch, get up and actually start doing things, because it's a hard process and it's going to be a long process. A lot of people spend their entire lives to make just a couple of short films, and vice versa, because it's really hard. There's a lot of stresses that come with it, but in managing your stress, finding that again mentality, passion, it'll be your driving factor of this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do. I'm gonna do it. So yeah.
Just overall, just thinking of filmmaking as a future for you. It comes with deciding whether or not it's something that you want to do, and definitely this industry, this process of filmmaking, it takes guts, it takes perseverance, it takes all of that good stuff when it comes to motivation, and just finding that within yourself and centering yourself as not only a filmmaker but a human being, and kind of seeing that as simultaneously things that are you, what define you. I think that that's the most important thing about this industry before anything else, thinking of yourself as a human and as a filmmaker, and knowing what it takes to be the best you that you are. And like I said, seeing if the motivation inside of you to be a filmmaker, if it's strong enough, and hopefully it is strong enough for all the potential viewers that are watching the show. But with that, you have to see that yourself. So I would say to any potential viewer that is watching this that wants to be a filmmaker, look inside of yourself and really decide if this is what you want to do. Because this industry, it has the glitz and glamour with all of Hollywood and all of that, but it comes with the hard work, and for a lot of people it's worth it, the hard work that comes with it, and I hope it's worth it for everyone that's watching. So that's something that you can definitely take note of with from anything of our podcast. Take note of, this is hard work, but it's hard work that's worth it.
Yeah.
So with the next question, I guess I would pivot last to I guess I would ask everyone here if there is something, that we haven't went through with the podcasts that we had in the past, through all the guests that we had in the past. Maybe is there still something you kind of see about the industry that is unclear to you, or even kind of scares you? I know that we are all on a journey to become potential filmmakers, so we definitely all have worries or anxieties of the filmmaking process and being in the industry. So I would ask all of you guys, is there something that you kind of still, from all our episodes, you still kind of worry about being a filmmaker in the future?
I wouldn't say worried. If anything, these like speaking to our past guests, they made me see things in a more realistic eye, but not in a pessimistic one. Because you had Derek, Gaz, and Kira. They would always talk about how yeah, finding work is hard. This industry might not pay you well. But as long as you love it, as long as you love doing what you do, none of that's really gonna matter. They did not say that in a negative way. They said it in a realistic way, but like, hey, you put in the work and you'll be fine. And I guess to answer your question, I'm not really worried about anything. Um, but at least not right now. Obviously, if I start in the industry, if I when I start working in the industry, I'll get worried and anxious a lot. But those are more for like, I guess, the projects them specifically. But as the career, I don't think I'm necessarily worried. If anything, I'm excited to get into it now.
I mean, definitely for my like my personal life, I'm dealing through a lot of stuff. So, and it's really hard for me to find that drive. We said it was like find that drive, find the drive. Sometimes it's super hard to find that passion and drive just to keep doing filmmaking. I was supposed to start take charge in helping create this film, and I strayed away from it. I'm straying away from it now, and I'm kind of struggling to get back on that film and start making it. So it's very, very, you know, finding your passion isn't, it's difficult. Finding that drive is very difficult. And really, I mean, my worry really is like I'm not going to be able to do these films and stuff. But I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot for the film industry because there's just a lot of different factors and components that work this giant machine that we call filmmaking. And so, it's really, I'm not really too worried about everything. I'll handle it when it comes, how it comes, and I will adjust myself accordingly to make sure that I succeed in whatever is coming my way. So really nothing specifically, but definitely like the anxiety of anxiousness of when I do films, what challenges are going to come after me, and what can I improve myself is another thing. Is how can I improve myself to become a better filmmaker than I am now? And finding that even for me, I'm still finding that like position that I want to be in because I like directing. I also like editing. I like writing and stuff. So if I really want to make do I still want to be director and direct? I'm probably not going to make a lot of money, but it's what I like to do. I know editing is really hard. It's a very hard profession to come by and definitely highly sought out in the industry. So maybe I'll do editing to make money. Or a lot of filmmakers too. Statistically, a lot of them become photographers because that's the base. And like Gas said, being a photographer is definitely a really good base to have. And photography makes really got a lot of good money. You don't have to deal with a lot of people like that. So again, really, it's nothing too specific for me, at least. That's causing my issue more of a, I guess, personal anxiety of everything overall, whether or not I'm going to do this or I want to do this, finding that drive. It's a lot. It's a lot of things that kind of have this bubble of anxiety that how am I going to move forward? And I think that's one thing that a lot of people, when they're finishing this course, ask themselves too: how am I going to move forward with this? This film, especially in these classes, you have an assignment. Okay, kids, we have an assignment. At the end of the semester, make a film. And then people, make a film. They have that drive of, I need this grade. I need to pass this class. Let me make this film. Now, we don't have to have grades. We don't have to have assignments like that. So now it's like, okay, what am I making this film for? So I guess finding that drive when you kind of don't have a, finding that drive is really. So I guess that. I guess answers your question a little bit, Alston, hopefully.
Yeah, like what you said, definitely the drive of, making films is something to think of and try to, hold strong. So it's definitely understandable. But also with drive, I think a lot of, filmmakers, especially in our position, not only is drive a force that is powerful, but I think access is a lot of filmmakers' journeys, I could say, access to whether it's equipment or, people, or especially your location. I mean, where we at, I know that there are, places more around the world aside from, California, where filmmaking is, appreciated or better supported, like, in Georgia and other places like that. But I think that definitely access is something that I have thought about when making films, because even if I, might write my scripts or do things like that, it definitely is a thought in my head of when I go past this phase of, script writing, thinking of where, how am I gonna, now start to make the film, or like, where do I go? I think a lot of times filmmakers, especially in our position, younger filmmakers, they think in their head, have anxieties of, how am I going to support this in terms of having a place to shoot this, or, my access of, I'm not in, maybe they're in a certain state or a certain place where, filming is hard. So I think that for me, I can empathize with that. And I really feel the same of, having the anxiety of, I don't have the access to make the film that I want. But of course, with that, I think if anybody else has that kind of thought process that I have, the only thing that kind of brings me out of really having much anxiety of that, I think it's kind of the motivation, like you said, the drive of when you want to make films, when you have that drive, you become resourceful. And I think that if somebody has my anxiety or like my feeling of, the fear of not having the access, I think that you really need to put your drive first. You really need to find, like I said a little bit earlier, find within yourself your love for film, like I said, your love for film, your drive for film will bring you to certain places where I think that even if you don't have much access to shoot a film or where your location is, I think that that drive will bring you to places you never thought of before. It will bring out ideas in your head to give you the ways around it, being resourceful not only in terms of ideas, but being resourceful in terms of your connections and just everything else. So that drive, I think, will bring out hopefully that anxiety or that fear of not feeling good enough, of I don't have the best access or I don't have the best way to get where I want. That drive will bring the new that drive will kind of bring the new sort of alternative out of you.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident, hopefully, everyone will be able to get into the job that they want to, whether uh, hopefully filmmaking one, but we'll see. So yeah, no. Is that all for this podcast, Austin? Or
Yes, that's all the questions that I have as of now for the podcast. Um, I will say yes, with everything that we've said in this podcast and all the podcasts we had before, my dog right here. Yeah, all the podcasts that we had before. I definitely will say this experience of kind of having this podcast with other filmmakers, I think is hold on one second. My dog is here. Yeah, I think this process of being a filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, to me, this is something that this is a podcast I think that will not only help the people. Hold on one second. Wait one second.
It's a learning experience, and that was good.
oh yeah,
With
yeah.
all these guests.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed talking to everyone. It was quite an experience to talk to these people and try to get to discuss filmmaking from people who either have been or is currently making their way in the industry and living out the dream that we all hopefully will get to live.
Yeah.
An exciting perspective from people who are aspiring filmmakers and could possibly empathize in a way to the viewers that are watching that is less instructional and more helpful to learn the ways of the industry from a perspective that I think is a place of work ethic and possible motivation into the ways that they can be inside of the industry and sort of enter it naturally, realistically, without the help of, famous parents or, whatever, some, perspective of people who are everyday people who are outside of the industry, have no connection to it naturally. I think this podcast can give a voice to those people and hopefully motivating, motivating thoughts and advice that will help them become a better filmmaker.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
definitely. All right, also, you want to close us off?
Yes, I guess yes, this will be our yes, this is our last podcast, and I wanted to say, yep, thank you to the people that are watching and the other guests that are here that help this podcast do what it is. And yep, hope anybody watching, good luck on your journey of being a filmmaker.
Yeah,
Right on, right on. See you
right
guys.
on.
Yeah.